What's up, tubers? T.O. here, Simplistic Fishing, coming back at you tonight for a new lake breakdown. I'm trying to stay as much in Texas as I can. Are you feeling like a champion? Because if you are, it is time to go break down Champion Creek. That's right, someone had requested this for me, I think like 3 or 4 months ago. I'm so sorry it's taken me so long to get to it, but here we are. We finally made it. We're going to do the Google Earth breakdown. We're going to take a look at the contours. We're going to see what this lake has to offer. I like this one as well. Let's go check it out. Like we always do, we start off on the Texas Park and Wildlife fishing page. If it is a Texas lake that we're breaking down, this time it is Champion Creek Reservoir. The location is in Mitchell County, 7 miles south of Colorado City on Texas 208. Surface area on this lake is only 1,577 acres, so pretty small. Maximum depth is around 28 feet. It's kind of crazy. I thought after breaking this down, looking at the Google Earth side, I haven't looked at it from the offshore perspective yet on the contours, but I would have thought it would have been a little bit deeper, so surprised it's only 28 foot. You can see down here the fluctuation is extreme, up to 10 feet annually. Usually when you see that, and you see that the water is turbid, it means bass fishing can be a little bit tricky. The good thing here is that you'll notice the clarity of the water can be clear to very turbid. It talks a little bit later on down in the description about the water clarity staying a lot clearer down towards the dam and getting a little bit rougher as you move up the river. So moving on down though, looking here, predominant fish species, largemouth bass. First off, no aquatic vegetation, but there is tons of that buckbrush that's everywhere, and some of that stuff can be really, really juicy when you go flipping jigs and all kinds of different things you can throw in there to get those fish out of there. But those can be pretty good. This really reminds me a lot of ivy. When I was breaking down ivy, you could see all of the different buckbrush that was out there. It's just tons of it that you can fish over and fish the tops of it and stuff like that. This lake has a lot of that as well. Moving down here though, I wanted to show you this couple things here. The lake records actually has some newer lake records here. Largemouth bass 11.8 in 2005. No, that's not new, but you did see here that they've got a crappie here. Weight was 1.44 pounds, length 14.5. That's a pretty big crappie for a white crappie. That was caught in 2023 of May 7th. And then if we look here on the junior angler though, it has a 6-pound largemouth, 21 inches in length, was caught on June 18th of 2022, caught on a Texas rig. So some pretty cool stuff. It's cool to see some newer dates in there, so you know there's still some pretty good habitat in there, pretty good fish in there. And also if you look up here at the stocking history, if you look here, they have stocked a ton of bass in this thing. 32,000 in 2023, 33,000 in 2022, 37,000 in 2020. 2019, it's pretty consistent, so they have really been taking care of this lake. This lake's probably getting ready to be primo if it's not already. Now, going on down, take a look at this. Angling opportunities, largemouth bass is fair, catfish is fair, crappie is fair, white bass and sunfish are poor. It does have some habitat structures that they put out there. I'll show you guys those when we're breaking down the lake. This is where it talks about the water clarity is fairly clear near the dam and gets more turbid upstream. Talks a little bit about catching white bass down here as well. And then it talks about the largemouth bass can be caught fishing live or artificial baits along the riprap, the flooded terrestrial vegetation, and along the drop-offs and ledges. And I'll point those out to you as we go through the breakdown. So now it's time to go ahead and jump into this thing. Let's go look at it from Google Earth and see what we found. All right, here we are out on Google Earth now, taking a look at Champion Creek. If you look over here to the left, this kind of shows you how we have everything broke down. We've got cover and structure that's out here. Let me go ahead and uncheck some of this stuff and show you what we have here. We've got cover and structure. That's going to be like ditches that we found, ledges, found a couple ponds in there as well. A couple different areas where the rock was definitely very present, you know, where it could be really good for largemouth bass fishing. It actually all looked pretty good. I couldn't really tell that the water was that bad in most of the imagery that we looked at. There is something that's a little bit different on this. You'll notice these red markings, and basically it's outlining the really heavy rock in these areas. So you've got one that's right there. You've also got the pond we circled, and then you've got a really heavy rock ledge that's right here as well. That's going to be really juicy to fish around. So we'll talk about those when we get into the breakdown. Now we've also got, besides the cover and structure, also got a ton of offshore on this lake. This offshore stuff, a lot of times it's either getting out because there's a hump there or something like that. We'll take a look at it from the Navionics mobile side, which we'll look at it from the contours and see what we can find. But a lot of this as well is what we were able to tell when the water was really, really low, and it's getting outside of the lines of where these bushes are, and basically getting right outside the edge of them. And those are just primo spots to go A-rigging and stuff like that. Definitely something you should check out. Then we've got ramps and slabs, not too many of them, a couple of them though, but you do have some submerged ones, a couple of them here that we can take a look at. Texas Park and Wildlife did put out a couple different fish attractors out here. So there's 3 of those. I know a lot of you guys are saying, but those are for crappie. Yes, they're for crappie, but the bass like them too. So do not check out on those. Those can be some really good spots. And then last but not least, you really have this main channel that comes up here. So I tried to really track it the best that I could of where the main creek channel is that's coming down. Some pretty interesting stuff here. So let's go ahead and select all of this. I'm going to leave the offshore on this time because some of the offshore stuff, as opposed to what we typically see when we're, we're doing the Navionics boating app and we're looking at the contours, some of the offshore stuff that we have here is actually offshore based on visually what we're seeing when the water is down, as opposed to just contour lines and things like that. So I'm going to leave that on. I'm going to go ahead and go up here to the sidebar. I'm going to take that off. I'm going to pull this back a little bit. And what we're going to do is we're going to draw the water back. And here's something interesting. When you go to 2014, you get this red image. Never seen that before. So very interesting. Nothing you can do with it. But going back to 2012, when you draw it back to 2012, you can really start to see that the lake is way down and you can see pretty much everything. So let's go ahead and let's just start down here at the dam. And we're going to work our way this way. East, southeast, south, I guess, and then east. And then we will work our way back down the west side. So when we're talking about the riprap, when they were talking about the riprap earlier to find bass, this obviously is a really, really good spot to find. Now remember, this looked a lot different when I had the water up. So you can see the riprap here. I'm going to draw that back to 2017. And when I do that, you don't see that line as easy, right? So this is probably going to be a lot shallower maybe right in here. And then you're going to have that drop, and that's where that rock line is right there. You can see all of it right here. So this is probably the way it looks today, but just remember that if we draw that water back, we get to see so much more. We can see exactly where that rock ledge is. Over here, here's another offshore spot. One of those that I was telling you about. We may not be able to see this on the contour. Likely it's a point that comes out, but if not, the cool thing about this is look at all the buckbrush that's underneath here, the trees and stuff like that. If you get right out off of that, that's right out off of that pointy area. Just looks delicious. Here's another slab, a slab here, old boat ramp or something like that. Again, when you pull that water up, that slab or that ramp is totally hidden. You don't even know that it's there. So that's definitely going to be a good spot to fish as well. Bring this back to 2012. Moving on down, we got some pretty good rock here off of this point. Didn't mean to leave that there. Had it marked for offshore, but changed my mind. Moving over here. Now pay attention to where this brush is. And like notice here, I can't tell if that's brush. If that's brush out here, fish out here. Fish out along those brush lines. If it's not, then obviously you can just come up here and flip around that too. Then we're going to keep on moving up. We've got a nice little point that's right in here. You can see we marked it as offshore, but if I go and show you the contours, it's going to show that there's a point there. The cool thing here is the water's down so far you can actually see the point really clearly. All right, so I'm going to keep moving up. Show you a couple more things. Remember, as I'm breaking this down, I can't mark all this stuff, but see if you can get out here and side scan and mark the edges of where all of this brush is. You can almost see it on the satellite here, but I can't guarantee that that's exactly what it is that I'm seeing. But if it is, find the sharp edges and things like that and fish around those. All right, so let's keep moving up, show you guys where I'm at. That was the dam. Just kind of move my way over to here. This will be our next offshore spot. We'll look at it on Navionics, but you can see here you got a nice little offshore point. Again, this one's really confusing because the water's down so much. I mean, if I draw it back up to 2017, now this looks completely different than what we were looking at a minute ago. So just keep that in mind as you see offshore, you're like, that's pretty much on land. Well, it's not really on land. It's just way low in this image. So here's some pretty good rock here too. Notice when I drew the water up, I think this rock was actually out of the water, and this one you would have no idea. And they put a brush pile or some type of fish attractor right beside that rock. You've also got another ramp that's down here, pretty far down. That's going to be another one of those that's going to be pretty well hidden. And you've got a nice little ledge that's back here too. That's hidden. Let's look at that with the water up. Now that ramp that looked like we'd be able to find that pretty easy is totally gone. It looks like that boat dock got destroyed as well. That ledge that's over here, you don't even know that it's there. So some pretty cool stuff. All right, we'll go back to 2012. Let's keep going. Some more rock, a couple more offshore spots. You can see nice little points. Moving up here, you got a pretty much a nothing point here. But the nice thing is, if you zoom in, you're gonna notice two different rock piles here. There's one right there. There's one right there as well. And you also have a fish attractor by Texas Park and Wildlife that put one there too. So that's probably gonna be a pretty good little spot. Could probably do some Carolina rigging and stuff like that over those little rock piles that are there. Okay, so we're gonna swing on up, pull back again, show you guys where I'm at. There's the dam. We're swinging on up across this side now. You may just want to check out these points. There's not a lot on them. I don't see a lot of rock or anything like that on them, but you may just want to check them out. We'll check out that spot too when we move over to the boating app. In here, you've got a Texas Park and Wildlife fish attractor. You've also got another little offshore spot we put here too because of that point. But again, I'm not too juicy on any of these offshore spots right here. But I would definitely at least go check them out. But I would for sure check out the fish attractor that's there. Now, this is another one of those spots. I told you that we're going to call it offshore, even though we might not see the contours from this. We can tell just by the way the growth is that's out here. So you've got some underwater brush, buckbrush that's all down in here as well. Those might be underwater willows, like old willow trees that grew up when the lake was really low or something like that. I don't know what they are, but it's good stuff to fish around. I just call it brush. We've also got another offshore spot here. Nice little point that comes out. Again, I'll raise that water up. You're gonna see that it looks completely different than what we're looking at. Just wanna make sure that, kind of keep that visual. Nice little ledge back here too, you can see. Kind of have another one right here too, probably could have marked. Maybe that one's not as significant, but this one's pretty good. Got some more offshore spots. You can see why we marked them offshore, the points. Draw the water up, see what that ledge looks like. Yeah, that ledge is gone. That one back here might actually be worthy of checking out too. So some pretty cool stuff there. Let's go back to 2012. And we're gonna keep moving up. Another offshore point. Interesting little ditch that comes through here. I don't know what's going on there, but a nice little ditch that's right in here. And when you bring the water up, that ditch is just completely gone. You can't really tell anything's there, but there's definitely something there. See, here's what it looks like when the water's up. All right, so I'm gonna pull this back. There's that red image again. And we're gonna start going up the creek here. We're gonna get up to the top and then we'll work our way back down. Here's some more offshore stuff now. I like this right here that you got the creek bed coming down here. You've got the brush over here. It's just a really good spot for them to hang out in this brush and just ambush bait as much as they want. A couple different offshore spots here as well. Pretty nice little ditch or something going on there that could be an offshore spot. And then back here, I'm gonna go ahead and remove that one because I think that's too far out. But let me look really quick. I might have just taken one away that I didn't mean to. Yeah, let's go ahead and take that one away because that one looks a little bit too shallow. And then we're gonna keep moving up here. We're gonna see a couple more spots, but we put offshore. This is really like a deep spot. I couldn't tell what was going on, but you can tell it's a lot deeper in here. And then when you bring the water up, it just pretty much completely disappears. But I'm thinking that could be a nice little spot to go fish around just right in here because you know you got a nice little deep spot going on right somewhere in that little section. So I'm gonna bring that back to 2012. Got another little ditch that's up here too you can check out. And then going up here, just pretty much following the creek channel. I didn't mark anything else up here. So we're gonna start working our way back down the west side. On this big turn, you start running in some pretty good rock. You can see it right here. You can see it up here as well. You're probably gonna have a pretty good little drop going on right in here. And this is gonna be a pretty hot bank line. All the way through in here is gonna be probably one of the primo spots you wanna fish in that creek channel. I'll show you, pull that back and show you guys where I was. It's really the biggest turn that's there. All right, so then we're going to move on down. A couple more offshore spots. We talked about that one. We talked about those two. Move it on down. I really should have moved this one out just a little bit more. Maybe move it out to about right here, because you can tell there's some kind of point or something that comes out, and you can see how dark it is right in here. I think I had my spot right there where those trees were, but I would say anywhere right in here. You may want to move that back. I'm going to move that back up where we had it, right in there. But if you still see the brush, just get out a little bit further until you get out on the edges of it. All right, same thing here. You've got potential here as well. It looks like you got a brush line going on right in here. It's hard to tell if it's a brush line, or it didn't say they had hydrilla or anything like that, so I gotta imagine that that's what that is. Let's keep moving down. If you notice this little line that comes here, this is right at the end of it, and it's off the edge of the point too, so it could be a good little spot to look. Again, another nice little turn, sharp turn right there underneath where that brush is, coming off the edge of the point. Another good offshore spot. Some more good offshore spots of just getting out here and getting off the edges of that stuff. I marked that for you, and then you've got some really good rock ledges going on right in here, all the way down to about right in that spot. And let's look at that when it's pulled up. That offshore, that brush is totally covered up, so you're gonna have to see it with your graphs. This rock does look absolutely juicy, something I would definitely fish around. And then out here we got a little pond. This is pretty cool too. If we pull it back, you'll be able to notice it pretty well. So fishing around that pond, the edges of the pond dam, stuff like that, that could be pretty good. We're gonna swing on down here. We're almost to the end. Another good offshore spot. Now this is a main lake point, so obviously it's gonna be a good offshore spot, but the thing I like about it is because it's got all this brush off the edge of it. And you may even, again, you may have to get out a little bit further than where I put the marker and just kind of get out in here and see what kind of success you can have there. Moving on up, last but not least, we got a little rock coming off this point. This is kind of the heaviest rock really we saw. I was thinking, you know, this being in the area that it was, we'd see a lot of rock, but really it's hard bottom, but it's not a lot of really big boulders or anything like that. But you got a nice little pile that's right here that should have some decent depth once the water's up. This is the water up. You basically don't even have to go up to the bushes. You get a little bit out here, and this is where that rock pile is. And that is it. That covers us for Champion Creek. Let's go ahead and switch over to the Navionics side. I'm going to export out these offshore hotspots. We're going to bring them into the Navionics boating app and see if there's anything in there that we weren't able to see on this Google Earth side that we might be able to see on that boating app. So here we are out on Champion Creek, and what we're going to do is we're going to look at the contours on this lake to see if there's anything out here that really catches our interest. And unfortunately, when we're zooming into this thing, you're going to notice that the contours on this lake really aren't that great. So it's going to be a little bit challenging to find some stuff on here, but hey, we saw it on the Google Earth side. We saw where those tree lines were, and I think that's what's most important. But if we look down here at the bottom, looks like we're having a little bit of a little lag time going on here. Here we go. Look down here at the bottom. You're going to notice that where we showed where those rock ledges were, all right in here, there's already somebody that's got a little marker here that says basically that's a fishing hotspot. Now if we move over to here where we have the other marker, there you can tell there's a little underwater point here, and that is where the edge of that brush was. Again, another point here too on that offshore spot. It says over here that there's a saddle right in here, but I don't believe that there's a saddle there at all, at least not from the contours. Now over here is where that rock was that we saw, where we saw the buckbrush that came out as well, or the willow trees that came out as well, whatever those were, underwater willows, whatever you want to call them. Over here too, off the edge of the point, kind of the same thing. You can see these points that we saw when the water was down. So I'm going to move over here too. Let's take a look at these two things. It just says S2 and S1. Not sure what that means. Probably a springtime thing. But we move up here, you can see here's the main river channel that's out here. So here's your main river channel. And so these are going to be right off the edges of where that river channel was. And this is where we saw that brush and stuff like that. So you definitely want to look in those. Here are those points that we talked about. And unfortunately, you notice here as I zoom in, normally we'd see a lot of different contour lines, but there's just not much going on, at least from this Navionics map. Moving over here, kind of hard to see really as well, but if we zoom in a little bit here, again, you're going to notice those points that came out. This is where we were able to see the edge of it underwater. Another good point here, another good point there as well. And I believe this was where we saw the brush that was out here too, and it's right along the edge of that creek channel. That's going to be your hot spots is getting out there, especially in the summertime. Then we're going to move up here. A couple more things up here, just these points. You can see, again, this, I think the Google Earth part was actually better than the Navionics part, because on Navionics you can't see these contours. You can tell there's a little ditch going on back in here. This is a little main lake point that comes out. And remember, we saw that. You kind of see that in Google Earth, and you could follow that tree line down. And I talked about that being a really good ambush spot as you get up in there. That is definitely going to be one of them. Up here too, little cut in that you could fish, nice little point. I don't think there's anything up any farther. I think that pretty much covers everything from the offshore side. We talked about these points over here on this side. You'll definitely want to take a look at these. This thing's taking a little bit catch up with me, but we definitely want to take a look at all these points here. Those are going to be pretty juicy spots. And of course, here's where that main river channel swing is, right through here. So this area, basically right here to about right in here, it's going to be pretty juicy. Definitely a spot you're going to want to put a lot of time into and just see what you can find. Then moving on down, last but not least, we get back down to the dam. We just got these 2 points out here. This is where that tree line was that was way out here. And then we also have this little spot right in here that looks pretty good as well, where it's kind of coming up a little bit, but then it still has a nice little deep spot. So you definitely want to go check that out. So that covers us for Champion Creek Reservoir. Make sure to go out and check out our website, simplisticfishing.com. We have all of these waypoints already preloaded for you. You just take them, you put the card in your graph, you're good to go. It'll change the way you fish, I promise you that. Not only do we have Champion Creek, but we have 175 other lakes out there as well for you to check out. Go look at it. It'll be worth your time, simplisticfishing.com. Until next time, guys, I hope you catch your PB. Take it easy.